Hello, beautiful people. Aaron Lynn from Aaron Lynn Real Estate Services here. Time for your monthly market update for July 2026. Hard to believe, I know, but we're already here. So summer months, busy time. It should be the busiest month of the year, and certainly it has been a busy month. It's been a whirlwind month in my business, that's for sure. A lot of success, but trials and tribulations, and not everything is super easy for buyers, and it sure as heck ain't easy for sellers. But let's dig into the stats and see what we're talking about. Total sales. Now we're looking at month to month, but I always like to look at year to year because I think it paints a clearer picture. So month to month, although this should be the busiest month of the year, we were actually down overall almost 1%, 0.8%. Let's round up to 1% month to month. So May was a little bit busier than June. However, we were down 6% for sales year over year. So June of last year saw 6% more sales than this year. That's a big deal. That's a big enough number that we should be scratching our heads and saying what's different now. And there's a couple of key factors. And not all things are equal across every segment of the market. So houses were down about 4% from last year. Condo sales were down about 25% year over year. But townhouse sales were up about 25% year over year. I mean, that's a little bit bananas, but it tells me that in the housing market, things are a little more stable, and we're seeing a lot of volatility in the lower priced sectors. What's interesting is people tend to, start at condos, work their way into townhouses, end up, maybe a house with a suite before they end up in a full, proper single-family detached home, but they don't go down to townhouses again. They typically go right back into condos. Nice condos at the end of their life, but they're empty nesters. Maybe they want to lock the door and travel for 6 months a year, and it's just a lot easier to do that in a condo. Townhomes have been having a year. I mean, they're up sizably one month, down sizably another, but the trend has been most noticeable in townhomes that when they have a really big month, they're the only demographic, I guess, in housing that's seen some serious upticks this year. So that's something to pay attention to. And I really think the simplest answer to that is people moving from condos can't quite yet get into a house with a suite, like a kind of a starter home thing. And certainly if they bought their condo in the last 5 years, they're lucky to get the money they paid for it today, unless they'd made pretty incredible improvements, which not a lot of folks had. They were just biding their time, waiting for property values to go up so they could upsize. That hasn't really materialized in the condo market, and so they're either staying in condos or getting into townhouses before going into houses with suites or single-family homes. Another key component in this market is just how many listings we have. So we're still over 4,000 listings, which we just got to in the last couple of months. We're up about 1% in listings from last month, but we're up about 7% in listings from last year. 7% is a big number. 7% should make us all pay attention. There's more properties for sale. Buyers are having more time to choose and more options at their feet. And sellers are having a tougher time selling what they're trying to sell. What's interesting, and we've seen this trend lately, is just because we're seeing fewer sales than we have in the last few years doesn't mean we're seeing prices crater. The average single family home is about 1.325 million. That's in the same ballpark that it's been for a long time. The average townhouse is about 840,000. I'm going to come back to that in a second. And the average condo is about 550,000. Again, those two condos and townhouses, those price brackets haven't shifted dramatically. I think what has shifted is what you can get for that money. The average thing is selling at that price, but it doesn't mean that the things that are selling are average. They're better quality, especially for condos. They're probably newer, maybe more manageable strata fees, certainly more impressive depreciation reports, not big expenses coming down the pipe in the very foreseeable future. So a good time to get into a relatively new build at a relatively low cost relative to where it's been the last few years. So what are the best buys right now, or what are people really looking for? In my experience, it's condos under 550, under 10 years old, houses under $1 million, and houses with suites under 1.3, really under 1.2. But not all of these things are created equal. So in those price points and in those specific demographics, what should you be looking for? Here's a couple of my tips. If you're looking at a home and the average price is 1.325, I would say your best bet is to look for something largely turnkey. And I don't think it should be terribly hard in this market. There's going to be a lot of stuff that's priced around 1.3 that needs a lot of work. Unless you love the location or you absolutely love the bones of the house, or your family lives next door or on the other side of the country and that's why you're buying it, you can hold out for something that isn't going to require a Herculean investment in the property itself, as well as a Herculean investment in the improvements. A coat of paint goes a long way. You can paint kitchen cabinets, maybe replacing countertops in bathrooms or kitchens could be more sizable expenses, but for that price, you shouldn't have to rip things down to the studs, and you really should be, in love with, or at least able to live in and be happy about living in 75 to 80% of the property itself. Some minor cosmetic changes isn't going to break the bank, and you won't have to reinvent the wheel to do it. But at that price, if you're not finding things that you absolutely love, maybe you need to increase your price point, but I would say use a little bit of imagination, see what kind of, low investment changes you can make, and hold out for what you want, because you should be able to find it. For condos, again, lots of folks looking for less than 10 years old condos at around $550. I think you should be able to find that. Looking in the West Shore is a good idea because there's lots of newer condos out there, and I just sold one for $495, a beautiful, almost brand new, great location condo in the West Shore. And those kinds of things are fairly ubiquitous. So rather than buying something from like the 50s, 60s, or 70s in Victoria proper, which might have pretty sizable strata fees and some pretty sizable expenses coming down the pipeline, if you're just looking for a place to live and you don't mind a small commute, if you work in the downtown core, if you work remotely, even better, maybe keep your eyes peeled on the West Shore. Get something new. You're not going to have somebody knock on your door and ask for a special assessment for $50,000 in the next 5 years, and it's just a little bit of peace of mind in terms of that investment, especially for first-time home buyers. Now, townhouses is where it gets interesting. Around that $840K is where I said things are selling now. I'm going to be a little less insistent on them being as turnkey as houses, just because townhouses are a bit of a hot commodity, and you might have to make a bit more of a compromise here, or at least have a little bit more of a vision, have a little bit more imagination. What I really want to hammer home here is location. Location, location, location. It always matters, but they're building a lot of townhouses sort of a little farther away from the center of town. You can get some older townhouses closer to the center of town where the walkability is great, access to beaches is great, good schools down here if you've got a young family. So although I'm saying for condos, maybe look in the West Shore, townhouses you can stick a little bit closer to home. They are very competitive, so you want to have your ducks in a row. By the time you're looking at them, you should already have a realtor, you should already have spoken to a mortgage broker, you should know what your buying power is, you should know what you're not going to qualify for and not waste your time. But again, go look at some townhouses closer to the center of town than what you thought you might be able to get, or in neighborhoods that you thought were a little elusive. And just imagine a fresh coat of paint and maybe some new flooring, like, nothing more than sort of $20,000, maybe 25 in cosmetic updates. And you might bring the value of your place, at least in your own mind, from the 840 mark to the million mark. And I think that is worth pursuing and worth keeping an open mind for. So there you have it. That's what's happening in the Victorian market lately. I hope you found it helpful. If you did, please feel free to watch some of my other videos, or if you're feeling really bold, subscribe. We could always use the company. Thanks so much. We'll see you next time.